Let me tell you something. Harvard University, one of the most prestigious, most expensive, most insufferably self-congratulatory institutions in the entire history of American higher education, has apparently been letting Chinese donors build private, custom-tailored scholarships. Scholarships that, by design, exclude American students. American students at an American university that takes American taxpayer money by the fistful. And now the Justice Department finally is looking into it. You know, I have been doing this program for a long time, my friends, and I have seen a lot of things that made me shake my head and say, well, there it is. This one is something else. Because it is one thing for Harvard to hate America in the abstract. They've been doing that for decades. That's almost quaint at this point. But to take Chinese donor money and say, yes, we will create a scholarship just for your people, and no, the American kids cannot apply, that is not ideological. That is not woke. That is a transaction. We're going to get into all of it. The Harvard story, the DOJ, what it means. We've also got Trump dropping 50% tariffs on Canada, hockey sticks and all. And we have the Iran situation, which is developing and which the drive-by media would prefer you not think too hard about. I'm Rick LeBeau. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. All right, my friends, let us dig into this Harvard business, because I have this story right here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, and the more I read it, the better it gets. The Justice Department has opened an investigation into whether Harvard University has been allowing Chinese donors, Chi-Com-adjacent donors, let's say, to create scholarship programs that explicitly exclude American students. This would be a violation of the Civil Rights Act. Now, let me just pause there for a moment. The Civil Rights Act, the law that the left treats like holy scripture, the law they invoke every time they want to stop something, restrict something, punish someone, lecture someone, that Civil Rights Act might have been violated at Harvard, by Harvard, in order to benefit the nationals of a foreign communist government at the expense of Americans. I have to say, if you wrote this as fiction, your editor would send it back and say it's too on the nose. Here's what we know. The DOJ is investigating whether Harvard has permitted Chinese donors to construct scholarship funds with eligibility requirements that shut out American-born students. Now, I want you to think about the mechanics of that for a second. Somebody at Harvard, some administrator, some dean, some very expensive functionary in a very nice office with a very serious face, sat across from a donor whose government surveils its citizens and runs concentration camps, and nodded along while that donor explained that their money comes with strings. And Harvard said, "Sure, of course, how much did you say?" This is not speculation, by the way. The DOJ does not open these things on a whim. They have something. Don't doubt me on that. Now, I want to be fair here, folks. I always want to be fair. Harvard has, as you might imagine, reacted to all of this federal scrutiny. Not just this investigation, but the full barrage of Trump administration inquiries over the last several months, with the full dignified outrage of a very old, very wealthy institution that is not accustomed to being told no. Their lawyers are busy. Their press office is busy. They talk a great deal about academic freedom and institutional independence, and all of these wonderful words that translate in practice to "leave us alone. We know better than you." They do not know better than you, and they certainly don't act like they think American students deserve the same consideration as the children of Chinese donors. That much, apparently, we can now confirm. Here is the thing that absolutely slays me about this whole story, and I mean this sincerely. Harvard's endowment is, the last time I checked, something in the neighborhood of $50 billion. $50 billion. They are not a university that is scraping by and desperately needs foreign money to keep the lights on. They are the richest university on the planet Earth. They don't need this money. They want it. And they wanted it badly enough to apparently look the other way on the terms that came with it. Now, what does that tell you about who Harvard really serves? Because I can tell you, it's not the American kid from Ohio who worked summers and got good grades and thought that maybe one of those golden doors might swing open for him. It's not him. Harvard has made very clear over many years and in many ways that they have a vision for who belongs there and who doesn't. And that American kid from Ohio, statistically speaking, not at the top of their list. But a Chinese donor's preferred candidate? Pull up a chair. Now, the broader context here is important, and I'm not going to skip over it. This is not the first time the Trump administration has taken a run at Harvard. Not by a long shot. There have been multiple federal investigations, funding freezes, visa disputes, the works. And the drive-by media has covered most of it as Trump just being vindictive against elite institutions that don't like him. Oh, he's just going after them because they were mean to him. That's the narrative. That is not what is happening. What is happening is that, for the first time in a very long time, someone with actual authority is asking the question, what are these institutions actually doing, and who are they actually serving? And when you ask that question, the simple question of who they serve, the answers are uncomfortable for them. You know, there is a concept I want to introduce here that the left absolutely cannot stand, and it is this: reciprocity. The Keycoms do not let American donors build scholarship funds at Peking University that exclude Chinese students. They do not let American institutions operate freely in their country. They do not let American companies play by the same rules their own companies play by over here. Everything is a one-way street. We open our doors, we open our wallets, we open our universities, and they strategically invest in access and influence. That's not a partnership. That's a leverage play. And Harvard, whether out of ideological sympathy or pure institutional greed, has been a willing partner in that play. That ends. Now, there's a legal element here I want to be honest about. The Civil Rights Act was written with a certain set of circumstances in mind, and courts have been inconsistent over the years about how it applies to international donors and scholarship restrictions. So this isn't a slam dunk in the courtroom. It may be complicated. Harvard has very, very good lawyers, very expensive lawyers, probably better lawyers than God, honestly. But here is what the investigation does, regardless of how the legal question ultimately resolves. It creates transparency. It forces Harvard to explain, in writing, under oath, exactly what they agreed to and exactly what they knew. And that, my friends, is something Harvard has spent a very long time avoiding. These institutions operate in the dark because the dark suits them. Sunlight doesn't. And let me tell you something else. If this is happening at Harvard, and I want to emphasize the DOJ apparently believes it is, you can bet your last dollar this is not unique to Harvard. These big, rich, prestige-addicted universities have been chasing Chinese donor money for 20 years. The money is enormous. The Chinese government understands the value of placing influence inside the institutions that train America's future leadership class. They've been playing this game methodically while we've been busy arguing about what to call things. I want to say one more thing about this, and then we'll move on. Harvard's defenders, and they are numerous and they are loud, will tell you this is political, that the Trump administration is targeting Harvard for ideological reasons. And I will grant you that there is no love lost between this White House and Harvard Yard, none whatsoever. But you know what? The source of an investigation does not determine its validity. If Harvard broke the law, Harvard broke the law. If they allowed a foreign government's donor class to purchase discriminatory access to their scholarship programs at the expense of American students, that is a problem regardless of who discovered it and regardless of their motives for looking. The truth doesn't care why you went looking for it. The all-knowing, all-sensing, all-seeing Maha Ricky has been saying for years, my friends, years, that these institutions have been captured. Captured by foreign money, captured by ideology, and captured by a self-serving cosmopolitanism that views the average American student as an afterthought. This investigation is, at minimum, evidence that someone in the federal government has finally started paying attention, and that, even if it goes nowhere in the courts, is worth something. All right, let's do the roundup, and we have got some good ones today, folks. First up, Canada. Oh, Canada. President Trump has announced 50% tariffs on a fresh list of Canadian goods. And I mean a list. We're talking alcohol, dairy, cement, and I genuinely love this, hockey sticks. Hockey sticks made the list. I want to know which aide was in that meeting and said, "Sir, hockey sticks." And Trump just looked at him and said, "Hockey sticks." And that was that. Look, here's the story. Canada has been running what amounts to a protectionist regime against American automobiles, American dairy, American alcohol. They put up barriers. They charge our producers a premium to play in their market, and then they turn around and act deeply offended that anyone would notice. And our friends in the press have been covering this tariff story as if Trump just woke up one morning and decided to be mean to Canadians for no reason, which is, and I say this with great warmth and professionalism, complete and total nonsense. The Canadians organized a boycott of American alcohol and dairy, an actual organized government-adjacent boycott. They made it a virtue to not buy American products. And now they are shocked, genuinely shocked, that there are consequences for that. There's always a consequence, my friends. America First is not a slogan anymore. It is a policy, and Canada, which has been freeloading off this relationship for a very long time, is being asked to reckon with that. 50% on hockey sticks. Don't test us. Next, and this one, I have to be honest, made me laugh in a deeply satisfied way. Hassan Piker. For those of you who don't know who this is, he is a very online, very wealthy left-wing streamer who inherited his audience partly from his uncle's political commentary empire and who has made a nice living telling young Americans that the system is rigged, capitalism is evil, and that something called socialism would really sort everything out. He showed up at the College Democrats of America convention in Washington, D.C. this past weekend, dressed, and I am not making this up, dressed as Mao Zedong. Dressed as Mao Zedong, the man who caused the deaths of tens of millions of his own people, one of the most prolific mass murderers in human history. That's the costume you pick to berate moderate liberals for not being extreme enough. You know, my friends, I have often said that the left will eventually tell you exactly who they are if you just pay attention. You don't have to read between the lines. You just have to watch. And here is a man who is influential with a significant number of young American voters standing at a Democrat Party event, wearing the uniform of a communist dictator, with a body count the size of a continent, and scolding people for being too moderate. And the College Democrats of America let him in. Nobody walked out. Nobody said, "I'm sorry, the man dressed as Mao cannot have the microphone." They let him speak. They took their notes. Some of them probably applauded. This is the activist base of the modern Democrat Party, folks. This is not the fringe. This is the convention. When the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, just released a platform calling for abolishing the Senate, abolishing the presidency, defunding the military, and scrapping the Supreme Court. And the party's youth wing invites a man in a Mao suit to yell at them for being insufficiently revolutionary. That is who they are. I love the left. I really do. Not for what they stand for, but for what they reveal. And finally, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas herself, the pride of Massachusetts, has endorsed a Michigan Senate candidate in the Democratic primary. His name is Abdul El-Sayed, and Warren is very excited about him because, she says, he is the only candidate who can build a grassroots movement to bring universal health care and all manner of leftist ambitions to fruition in the United States Senate. Now, I want to talk about the endorsement itself for a moment, because it is a window into how the Democrat coalition works right now. Warren, who failed spectacularly in her own presidential campaign, whose big moment was getting destroyed in the primaries by the very voters she claimed to champion, has apparently decided her lane is endorsing other people and hoping her brand of politics finds a vehicle that isn't her. Which, honestly, is probably wise. But the interesting thing here is the coalition she's assembling and signaling to. There is a real competition right now inside the Democrat Party for which direction they go, who leads what I like to call the coalition of the oppressed. Every grievance group, every identity, every hyphenated interest that the Democrats have been promising things to for decades and delivering very little. And El-Sayed is clearly being positioned as a vehicle for that wing of the party. Whether the voters of Michigan, who have been watching their state's politics get increasingly interesting and volatile, go along with that, well, we'll see. We'll see. Michigan voters have been known to surprise people. They surprised everyone in 2016. They surprised everyone in 2024. I wouldn't assume they've stopped surprising people. Warren says he's the only one who can build a grassroots movement. My friends, every Democrat candidate is the only one who can build a grassroots movement. That phrase has been used so many times it has lost all meaning, like paper that's been folded too many times. It just falls apart. But we'll keep an eye on Michigan. That race is going to be worth watching. My friends, before I let you go today, and I do this every day, I know you hate it when I wrap up. I hate it when I wrap up. But let me leave you with this. 3 stories today, 3 very different windows into the same basic reality. Harvard taking Chinese money and cutting out American kids. A man in a Mao costume at a Democrat youth convention, and Elizabeth Warren still out there, still doing her thing, still convinced the country is just one more left-wing Senate candidate away from the revolution she's been promising since before some of her voters were born. The through line in all of it is that the people who are supposed to be looking out for America have been, for a very long time, looking out for themselves. Their access, their funding, their ideology, their donor class, their political coalition. America, the actual country with actual people in it, has been the afterthought. That is changing, slowly, imperfectly, with a lot of noise and a lot of fighting. But it is changing, and the institutions that have coasted on the assumption that accountability would never reach them are finding out, one subpoena at a time, that the ride is over. Don't doubt me. I'm Rick LeBow. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow, if they let us back on.